special person that we have been able to persuade to come in the middle of a very, very, very difficult and, well, not a hectic time afterward. The German ambassador to India, Ambassador Philipp Ackermann, who's a very dear friend of WISCOMP, has been supportive of us through the decades. In fact, he was a regular resource person at many of our conflict transformation workshops when he was working on Afghanistan in particular. And I know that he was extremely popular with all the delegates who would never, it was a problem to get them back into the room because they were surrounding Philip all the time after. But I'm deeply grateful that he's made time. You know that the German Chancellor is here, is due tomorrow. And of course, they're also launching this or reinforcing this big partnership, green and sustainable development partnership. Am I correct? Yeah. Yes. And they're also looking at green hydrogen, about which Ambassador Saran spoke about in the morning. And in the midst of this very hectic schedule of arranging this visit, I'm deeply grateful to you, Philip, for having made time. I just want to do a quick introduction. Of course, as you know, he's a senior German diplomat. He was Federal Foreign Office Director General for Africa, Latin America, Near and Middle East for 5 years before his current position. And from 2014 to 2016, he was Deputy Head of Mission in Washington. From 2010 to 14, he led the Federal Foreign Office Task Force, Afghanistan and Pakistan, and served as Deputy Special Representative for both Afghanistan and Pakistan. Between 7 and 10, he worked at the German Embassy in New Delhi, which is where there were regular prayers being sent out from WISCOMP that it would return as ambassador. And I think we predicted that, and lo and behold, voila, he's here with us today. Again, deeply grateful, Philip, for your time. Please address the country. Thank you. And of course, livelihoods and climate justice is a big issue as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Meenakshi, for these overly kind words. I'm a little embarrassed right now. Actually, rumor has it that you knew before I was to become the German ambassador to India, and it gives me enormous pleasure to be back here in Delhi, back in the IAC, and back with WISCOMP, because you rightly said that we did a lot together in my previous posting here, and I was a very, very long-standing, or I am a long-standing supporter of your work. And admirer also of your work. I must say I'm a little embarrassed also because I interrupt this extremely interesting panel. I was listening with great attention. I think there's a couple of wonderful ideas on the table. I'm quite fascinated by the concrete measures you have put on the table. Congratulations. It is a very, very interesting topic. I'm again, and Meenakshi, you hinted already, I have to leave you very quickly because the Chancellor is indeed coming tomorrow, and I made it a point that I interrupt my slightly hectic day in order to be here, and therefore please forgive me if I won't stay for a long time with you. Next time I promise I'll be longer and listening more attentively. So thank you very much, Meenakshi. Also Ambika from Kubernein and Priyanka. I think we have had a very, very good discussion ahead of this meeting, and I'm very fond of your work too. I wanted to say a word on the side before I start, because I think this has to be said. Today is a year, we have a war in Europe since a year, and this war is not coming to an end very soon, and I think it is a very sad anniversary. We don't see a solution in mind, but I wanted to flag here that there is 1.1 million Ukrainian refugees in Germany, mostly women, elderly, middle-aged women with their kids, young women with their kids. Men are not allowed to leave the country, and they have to, just one aspect of this war, they have to try to find a new life. Sending kids to school, and all those who have thought that after a couple of months they could come back to their homeland, they see that how mistaken they were, and they have very often, in spite of themselves, starting to think about a new life in Germany, with all the problems that brings it along, language training and finding a profession and so. But that's, maybe the least of all problems that the war delivers, and I want to say that my country and the European Union is deeply worried about this war. we wouldn't have thought a war in Europe happening was possible at all, and now we have seen a development that shows us how mistaken we were, or under which illusion we lived for a long time. We have to make sure that the international order is sustained, that we don't give up on what we have achieved and what we have agreed upon in the framework of the United Nations, and safety of borders is in this context a very important issue, an issue that is also of great importance to other countries like India in this case, I would like to say. But now I feel sometimes that we are so concentrated, we are so focused on this war because it's happening in front of our door, that we somehow should not lose, the main topics that we have to tackle together with you, together with the whole world, should not get neglected by this war, and climate change is certainly one of them. So I hope that my government can continue its important work on climate change, and I think it's basically a much more important challenge we have to face. So I think on top of our to-do list, climate change remains, and it's maybe the most important global crisis we face, and we have to think very hard on every level of society how to tackle this crisis, and tackle climate change and adapt to it is one side of the coin. And what I admire of this panel today is that there is also another aspect to it, and that's the aspect of women's involvement in climate change. We need to involve women more in this climate change discussion, and we need to close the gender gap. We have to face the fact that if we continue with the pace of today, it will take more than 130 years to close the gender gap. That's unacceptable. We have to accelerate as much as we can, and we have to try to the utmost to close it quicker. So I think these two challenges are interlinked. Especially women can be very powerful agents of change in their communities in many circumstances. I've lived that myself. Meenakshi, you mentioned my Afghanistan time, where it's a very sad case when you look at it right now, but my experience is the moment you involve women in development work, the result gets better 100%. It is unbelievable how strong women can be if you give them the chance, even in very difficult circumstances like Afghanistan, to contribute to solutions. And basically, sometimes they take over, and their result is better than much before. An effective climate policy must also be based on a feminist approach. I think it's very important. Only by acknowledging this linkage we can reach the Sustainable Development Goals. Women are the key factors in this development, and the SDGs aim explicitly a sustainable development for all, and can by definition only be fulfilled when policies are gender sensitive. I think it has become very clear in the international discussions on gender and climate that climate change does affect the poorest and the most disadvantaged. The impacts of climate crisis are not gender neutral or class neutral. Even more, the efforts of climate change often deepen and reproduce existing inequalities. If we realize this, we have to see, how to solve this very difficult development, or this difficult fact rather. So all the more important it is that we make efforts to take the view of the most marginalized groups, and that in many parts of the world includes, unfortunately, women. We have to say that. Yeah? It's very sad to say that nowadays, but it is the fact. We have to take the view of the most marginalized groups on board when taking decisions on climate policies. So especially women are often held back by discriminating power structures which express themselves in the gender-specific distribution of rights, resources like land and representation. It's very important. In the return, the effects of climate change have the potential to exacerbate conflicts around the world. Where vital resources dry out, conflict isn't far. Again, the already marginalized groups will be more affected. I've seen that in the Sahel very clearly, where women, in many parts of the Sahel, women are completely marginalized. I have to say that with great regret. They are illiterate and they are married at the age of 13, 14. They have the birth rate in Niger or Mali is crazy. It's 7.2 kids per woman. That means a 25-year-old woman in Niger can have 10 children in a way. You know, this is absolutely unheard of. And when you talk to these women, I went to countryside and in circumstances where climate change hits, particularly because there is a drought, there is no way to do agriculture in a proper way. The population increases and grows at such a pace that, you know, feeding kids is just not possible anymore. And it's easy to solve these problems when you start educating women. It's very easy. The moment you send women to school, the moment you send the girl child to school, you have a completely change in the balance. And people, even though illiterate, they know that the women in Niger whom I talk to, they want their kids to go to school, and especially the girl child, because they understand that this is basically the better perspective for the kid. So I've listened to you a bit, and I think what I really liked was your bottom-up approaches to things, addressing climate change in cities. No? I mean, that was very, very interesting. What you told, this comparison. What do you do where's the lessons learned? When can you you know, take some lesson from another city? And also to include women in the decision making, to tap into their expertise in the implementation of policies. And I fully agree with this hypothesis. It's very important that we pursue inclusive foreign and development policies from the start, or by design, to get the best results. So we have in Germany we try to prioritize both. We try to prioritize the climate policy, action against climate change, adaptation to climate change, but also a feminist approach to our own feminist and development policies as cross-cutting elements. So we have since the new government came into power, we have a very, very active and extremely lively international climate policy. It's a top priority for us. And we have that mainstream between our ministries. You might have heard that our special envoy for international climate action, Jennifer Morgan, she's a Secretary of State, she was here 2 weeks ago to discuss energy transition, or even last week it was. We are very active in COP28, and we want to, in the international fora, to get alliance together on how to address climate changes in various contexts. But at the same time, an inclusive and therefore feminist approach of our foreign and development policy is one of our priorities. On 1st of March, our foreign minister, she was here in December, she will present, or she will sort of issue or publish some guidelines, strategic guidelines on both feminist foreign and feminist development policy. That's for us. It's a very integral part of our approach to international politics. Will be the inclusion of women in our foreign policy portfolio, and therefore I think it's very, very encouraging to see that the Indian G20 presidency seeks to bring women as leaders in the forefront of development with women-led development. So women are not only seen as beneficiaries of development, but it is acknowledged clearly that women-led development will lead to better, more sustainable development. That's what I said before in my Afghanistan experience. And I think this is a very crucial insight due to the widespread gender-specific distribution of everyday task and care work. Women have specific knowledge and skills as providers, educators, energy and transport users, and land managers. So globally, more women than men are employed in agriculture. It's also a very interesting fact. In agriculture, forestry, and fisheries, and therefore I think women have an incredibly important knowledge to deal with the climate-related risks to, for example, water or food security. And I think it is a sad fact that this expertise has not been heard so far in a satisfactory way. And I think we have to strive to get this expertise more into our grassroots and daily analysis of what is happening and what is needed to be done with the climate change. So I think India, when you look at India, you have a long tradition of women's empowerment. I think nobody would deny that challenges remain, but there is an old, and I always call what I'm very fond of is this India's self-healing forces. You know, the civil society in India is so strong and is so creative and so ingenious that you see such a rich basket full of wonderful solutions, tailor-made solutions for communities that no international development agency can match that, and therefore I think India has my greatest admiration when it comes to civil society activities and creativity, and for involving women is very important. Therefore, I would say that the Indian government's thinking on women-led development is very progressive. It is much in line with the feminist foreign development policy followed by Germany, and I see there a great potential for future cooperation with and in India. So I just want to conclude by saying that we have a couple of quite interesting projects which I would like to mention, if you allow me. We have a very interesting project together with our Indian friends and partners to promote natural farming practices through women's self-help groups in Andhra, where it's an agroecology project. So women are, through this, becoming agents of change, not only for themselves, but also for a better environment, making their food supply and income more climate resilient and providing their families with healthier food. So that's it's a small but very interesting project. The second project is in Rajasthan, where the impact of global warming is very visible in the local water supply, where we are financing a project on water conservation, and this project is explicitly women-linked. It will empower women to take on leadership on political decisions on local water management. It will show that women are able to lead on local policies and will have an impact beyond water conservation. And the third project, which is a niche project, but I really like it a lot. It is a very small one, but it's a very interesting project. It's in Odisha. We are supporting women and the LGBTQI community, I'm sorry, I have to read that, to become e-rickshaw drivers. We help them to become self-reliant and also enable other women to use safe transport. Even more important, this shows girls that they can work in male-dominant spheres or male-dominated spheres, becoming also a role model for their communities. So these are little projects, I know, but I just wanted to say that we are very aware of the challenges women still have in India, and we want to work together with the Indian civil society to improve every now and then the role. So we have to face the fact that even if we have good projects, society doesn't change overnight. It will need a push of governments and every individual and over a prolonged period of time to get what we really want. And civil society, as I said, will play a very, very major role in it, be it in Germany or in India, and therefore I'm very, very happy that you are taking on this role today and talking about it and bring forward the discussion. Let me say again, thank you very much for inviting me. I hope I shared some valuable thoughts with you. I'd be very happy to keep in touch with all these good ideas. Maybe we can have another project in this context, which might be, with one of your organizations. I think you are laying the groundwork for further social change in India, and I wish you a very good continuation of the discussion today. Thanks a lot. You want me to answer two or two questions? I can do that. Otherwise, I will.
If you have the time. If you have the
Yeah.
time.
If anybody has a question on this, I'd be happy to answer. If not, then forgive me that I have to.
I can ask a question.
Yeah, please.
Vic also has a question. If I may. I mean, I don't want to monopolize the ambassador's time, which I can otherwise also. But if nobody else has a question, for those who don't know, Germany has a feminist foreign policy, and the guidelines for that are going to be released very soon in the coming few days. Thank you. But for the last several years, they've been integrating this concept of a feminist foreign policy, both in their federal foreign ministry, but also in the development and climate space and the economic space. So very specifically, Ambassador, how do you think this idea of your feminist foreign policy has actually made realistic change when you work with partners like India on implementing this?
So it's very difficult to say because I think we have to start in Germany proper, frankly. And when you look at Germany, we are not that good. You know, look at the share of our workforce. Women are not 50% in our workforce. If you look in the top level, I mean, we had for 16 years a federal chancellor. She was a woman that was basically, we were very proud of that. But go a level below, you know, not even the current government has a parity of men and women in the almost, but not totally. So when you look at how many women are ambassadors of Germany, it's basically not that good. Yeah, we have to see that basically what we should strive at is 50-50, and we don't get there. So I think what we start with this feminist foreign policy is saying, you know, we have to develop ourselves a feminist reflex in foreign policy. We have to start thinking on how to involve the women's point of view in all our dealing, and that starts at home. Then I think the second thing is you have to build alliances around that. Are there partner countries that share a view of this feminist foreign policy? And I think in Europe there is no shortage of partner countries, but you need to go beyond Europe. So I remember a discussion with the president of Niger. I mentioned this country, which has a very, very difficult and precarious situation. And he understands feminist foreign policy because he knows how important women are for his country. So I think we need to have countries in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, siding with us on this, or to develop this reflex, which should be basically a natural reflex by now, but it is not. So I think it is a long-term project. We will start with it, and we hope that the seedlings will grow over time. Yeah?
Just a comment, and I hope you will not rescind on this FFP like Sweden has done. That was a big shocker when it came to us. The second is that we understand that Germany and India, especially in the G20 year, is going to engage in collaborative development projects in other countries.
Yes.
That to me was a very novel initiative. Would you like to share what the...
It's an interesting idea, and frankly I can go back to my previous time when I tried, Ambassador, you were then in a very, very important function, although not responsible for Afghanistan, but other very important fields of activities. No, but we wanted to start with Afghanistan, an India-German joint project in Afghanistan, and for some reasons it didn't work out, although the willingness was there. But now there is a clear decisiveness, or the decision by the Indian government to go for this trilateral project, and it's very interesting. We started in 3 African countries, in Ghana, in another Western African country, and I think in Malawi, Nigeria maybe, Nigeria, and in Malawi. And these are small agriculture projects, and this is a very interesting project. So where women also, you know, get involved in better, improve agricultural outcomes. So it's sugar cane in one project, and the other one is something else. So you see that agriculture is in the focus of these projects, and so far they are going well. So the thinking is that to set up a fund, an Indian-German fund, for these trilateral projects. And I think it's a very interesting idea because coming with, my conviction is that India has a particular charisma in these countries, much more than the West. The countries look at India, they see the substantive growth, they see, how lively a society India is, and they feel that, countries that have come from a very difficult time, where people were very poor, or still are, but, were much poorer before, that for them makes a difference. So I think India is a very good partner in these trilateral cooperations because it shows that they are much closer in many ways than Germany to Ghana, and it shows that their success is possible, is feasible. So I'm a big fan of this trilateral cooperation, actually. The mover and the shaker. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Well, I have worked with pure Northeast region in
You-
Kunduz,
okay.
with UNAMA. With a pleasure meeting you again, sir. Well, my question, sir, you give example of African countries. While a girl is reaching 25 years of age and probably having 6 to 7 kids. But considering the current situation, what's happening in Afghanistan, women are fully banned from all aspects of life. Do you believe in another 5 to 10 years the same thing will happen in Afghanistan because the number of forced marriage, Taliban fighters getting married with the young girls, educated one? Do you feel the same thing will happen in Afghanistan?
I'm, be very honest with you. It's heartbreaking to say, but that's the situation I'm going to see. We have seen, in spite of all the commitment these so-called Taliban representatives have made, we see that you're walking backwards in Afghanistan. And I think. What I see in rural areas where still most of Afghans live, this will be, it's a blow, a terrible blow. I think one of the big things we achieved, the international community in Afghanistan, was education. The number of schools we built in the north, Kunduz, you have seen, the numbers of girls' schools we built, good schools, very solid schools, led to a sudden and very seizable growth of education of girls and women. And if you continue like that for the next 10 years, this effect will evaporate. I'm sorry to say.
Can I ask a related question? Sorry, we have to move on to the next. But I'm sure at some point
we will come again. Thank you very much. Thanks very much. I'm sorry that I have to leave.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Ackermann. I would request my colleague Shilpi to give a token of our gratitude, a box of millets. This is the year of the millets.
Thank you very much.
From WISCOMP. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very kind of
Thank you. You covered so much ground in the short time that you spoke, touching on what the German priority on feminist foreign policy, women-led development, which is more sustainable in your view. I was particularly struck that you started by talking about the war, and you spoke about the connection between climate change and conflict. The impact that the wars have on climate. Perhaps we will start to explore the impact of this one-year war in a few years as to what this is doing to the planet overall and the other wars that are being fought in different parts of the globe. We start to deeply engage. So thank you very much.